Welcome to PipsRainbow. Today we're going to learn how to block our yarn work. Now there's lots of different ways you can block your work. This is one of my rainbow granny squares and this is one of my favourite ways to block. It's just some sponge mats and some pins, and all you need to do is wet your crochet work, so in a bit of warm water, so give it a little bit of a wash, and then we start to pin it out. So once you've washed your yarn, all you need to do, place it back on the mat, and then you need to smooth it out with your hands, and then get your pins and place it in the places where you want the yarn to set into. So just pull it out up there, this one, and you can just keep, as you can see, keep smoothing it around to make sure it's in the place that you want it to be. So I've finished pinning it out and I'm quite happy with that. Keep smoothing it, and all you need to do now is let it dry, which can take maybe a day or so, depending obviously how big your work is. And here's the finished article, all blocked with lovely crisp edges and corners. Here's some little face mask attachers that I've been making for the NHS, and as you can see, I've pinned them all the way around and onto my foam mat, and they've been drying for a day or so. So when you're doing big blankets and you need to block your work, you're best to use these sponge mats again, and I just laid them all out, wet my blanket, and then pinned it all out and left it in place. Obviously it does take a little bit longer when they're much a bigger project to dry. Right, so here's another method you can use for blocking. My husband made this. If you've got a handy partner that could make you one of these, it's basically some of my grand's old knitting needles and a block of wood, and that is literally just drilled holes in equal parts so that I can block out my granny square with my knitting needles. As you can see, you just pop your knitting needles in place and you can set it to where you want it to be, like the other method. This one's really good because you can make quite a few and tower them all up and keep them on there safe till they're ready if you're making a blanket and you're going to sew them together. I just want to show you this little tower of lovely little granny squares that were part of another blanket that I made. And as you can see, you can tower them up on this particular way of blocking, so they can stay on there until they're ready to be sewn together. Some people might ask why you need to block your work. As you can see, these are some granny squares that I've made for my daughter's blanket, and they're not blocked yet. Can you see how all the edges are curling up and they're all a bit wibbly wobbly? That's why you need to block. And hey presto, here are my blocked granny squares, the exact same pile as the previous clip I just showed you. As you can see, they're nice and straight and ready to go. Here's a blanket I made for my daughter from all those granny squares. It has been blocked, so you can see it's nice and flat and smooth, and all those little all those little edges as well are nice and straight. Just a tip, I did use the same border colour for each granny square, so when I did sew it up, it's obviously an invisible sewing, means you can't see, so it makes it much easier. So one little thing to think about if you are making a blanket. This is the last method that I wanted to show you that I use. It was free off a magazine. It's a sponge mat and some little wooden dowels that you stick into the holes according to what shape you want to set and want to block. As you can see, they're going to use some nice little triangle ones as well. So it's quite a nice one to use, especially if you're making a blanket. Thanks ever so much for watching. If you check out my website, www.pipsrainbow.com, there are loads of free patterns and free tutorials and all sorts of things on there for you to have a look at. Don't forget to press the thumbs up button if you like the video, and subscribe if you want to be kept up to date with more video clips that I'll be putting on as quick as I possibly can. Thanks ever so much. Bye.